I think what really gets me about this situation is how it just comes off that she doesn't like her fans. My name is Taylor Rose, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about everything reading and writing. This author has popped up pretty consistently during this calendar year with various crash outs about several different topics. You've probably heard of the name Jessa Hastings. She is a contemporary romance author who is most popular for her Magnolia Parks series. She originally indie published this, but it did get picked up by a trad publisher. If you look up Jessa Hastings on Goodreads, you can see she has quite a few titles. It does say there are 17 results. Only 8 of them are actually unique books and not like collections or anything. So you can see her Magnolia Parks series does have 5 titles in it. Personally, I'm not a contemporary romance reader, so definitely not my speed, but she does overall have pretty high ratings. So Magnolia Parks is about the following. She is a beautiful, affluent, self-involved, and mildly neurotic London socialite. He is Britain's most photographed bad boy Lothario who broke her heart. But Magnolia Parks and BJ Ballantyne are meant to be, and everyone knows it. They're in the stars, just suspended in a strange kind of love that looks like hurting each other a lot of the time. She dates other people to keep him at bay. He sleeps with other girls to get back at her for it. But at the end of their every sad endeavor to get over one another, it's still each other they crawl back to. But their dysfunction is catching up with them, pulling at their seams and fraying the world they've built. A world where neither has to ever let the other go completely. As the cracks start to show and secrets begin to surface, Magnolia and BJ are finally forced to face the formidable question they've been avoiding all of their lives. How many loves do you really get in a lifetime? Again, personally, I don't like stories where obviously they're not like cheating on each other, but books or TV shows that focus on this idea that they're your true love, but you're going to go mess around as some sort of revenge thing. I'm kind of laughing at some of these reviews though. Anya says, 1 star. While you were homesick with the flu, the love of your life had biblical relations at a party at his old house in a waterless bathtub with someone else who smelled like musk and orange blossom and tuberose. Everyone who says that this book is the British version of Gossip Girl must be hating the show, because why then you insulted that much? 1 star purely for me finishing this and vibing to Drake's songs while reading. But I will say from the description, this book does sound like something people who like Gossip Girl would like. My friend in college really loved Gossip Girl, but I could not get over how stilted all the actors delivered their lines. Outside of her Magnolia Parks series, she has published some other books. There is Never, which is a Neverland retelling, which has had its own share of controversy, as well as The Conditions of Will, which I believe is her most recent release. I know I keep saying this, but personally, this cover makes me really uncomfortable. I'm not a religious person, but I was raised Catholic and grew up in Central Texas. So this imagery being used for a book that, per its own description, is about the main character maybe stealing her gay brother's love interest. Interesting choice. Like, it would be one thing if it was a story about someone's journey through religion or something, but none of that seems to be at all related. There's this article on the expert book Smuggler that I think kind of really sums up some of the controversies about the books specifically that Jessa has released. You can see in this article, What's the Deal with Jessa Hastings? Published by Alec. People tend to put Jessa on their DNR or do not read lists because she's had some issues with racism, racist turns of phrase, etc., promoting Zionism, and as well as fighting her readers. Since I haven't read the books myself, we're going to go with what Alex has said in her article about the book controversies. Specifically, a lot of people have issues with how she treats her gay side characters. So in The Conditions of Will, the main character's brother is a gay man, and for whatever reason, the main character is assuming that the brother's Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor is also gay. So she just starts touching him because she says her social inhibitions melt away around gay people because she's inherently trusts them more. Alex points out that Other reviewers note that in Magnolia Parks, there is another gay side character who's treated as an accessory that doesn't actually have any of his own purpose in the story. Other reviewers talk about the conditions of Will having the main character's brother being obsessed with the male lead and then having a secretly gay plot twist, because I guess the way she is treating these topics can come off as really stereotyped. Their main complaint is that, you know, that harmful belief some straight men have where they assume gay men will automatically fall in love with them just because they're men. This book doesn't just include that idea, it amplifies it. The gay character is made out to be the villain, insufferable and even childless, simply because he doesn't want his friend to date his sister. All because he has feelings for the friend who he knows is straight. Not that you can't have a plot that involves ideas like that. I mean, jealousy is a really human emotion, but it is all about how you portray what's going on and how you're speaking about it. There's definitely a difference between having a character who has problematic thoughts than there is something written where you can tell this is the author's actual point of view, especially if it's like a recurring theme in a lot of their works, if that makes sense. Some other book controversies that she's had is that the F slur is used multiple times in the Daisy Hates book. Specifically, during a scene at a club, one of the characters is called the slur, and a main character repeats it more than once. Although the author portrays her as angry about it, it's curious that the author repeated the slur instead of having the character say the F word. And I agree with that. I don't think if someone called my friend a slur, I would repeat the slur to tell other people how bad it was. In her Never book, which is the Peter Pan retelling, she describes a character who is biracial as so tan he looks dirty. Interesting. And a lot of people criticize the book because the female main character is underage, and the relationship between her and Peter Pan, who's now an adult, can be described as predatory, specifically because people are saying that it's brought up multiple times. Like, she's turning 18 soon, which obviously is the problematic part. In the book Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, there is references in a positive manner to the main character donating to a Zionist organization. There is also a lot of criticism aimed at how Magnolia's father is portrayed in pretty much every time he's mentioned, because Magnolia is meant to be biracial. Her mother is supposed to be Russian. Her father is supposed to be a black man. And he is described as big and scary, and describes him as the following. Do you know what it's like to date the daughter of a big burly black guy who has 50 Cent on speed dial? High stress, man. That's what it's like. I spent her 17th birthday party sweating bullets because I'm pretty sure her dad told Kendrick Lamar and Travis Scott to stare me down and keep me in line. What? So you can see there are a lot of issues. On Reddit, there are multiple threads of people trying to discuss the author's strange behavior and treatment of biracial characters. Open one 4062 on the Magnolia Parks Reddit asked, why does no one talk about Jessa Hastings' weird obsession with mixed race people? Romeo, Carmela, Magnolia, Bridget, Romilly, and now Isolde, bringing up how Romeo's parents did a good job with mixing and saying beautiful in the way mixed girls usually are when first meeting Romilly. This is clear fetishization. And they say, edit, direct quote from Into the Dark. The brown skin, the light eyes, the dark hair all wet from a shower, from one mixed race person to another. Truly, job well done. Bambrilla parents. This type of talk is weird. A lot of people did come to Jessa's defense, pointing out that, because she has stated she is biracial, and how it is normal that people want to write characters that they can connect with. But some people do think that, her presentation of some things is kind of weird. You can see this post by TMR person who says that they are biracial, and so they liked seeing biracial representation in books. But they do say that now that they know Jessa is biracial, I think it comes across as a little weird because I don't think Jessa writes what the experience of being biracial is like well enough. She doesn't really go into what it's like on a day-to-day basis. So I think where part of this fetishization comes from is she kind of talks about mixed people like it's only a good thing without acknowledging some of the harsh realities that come with it. This could also be very much attributed to the fact that she's very white passing, so she cannot really understand what it's like. Which obviously, my opinion, doesn't really count in this situation, but I do think this person explained themselves well in why they thought the representation was a little weird. Seeing Rude posted this screenshot of Jessa herself commenting that she has a white mother and a mystery race brown father. And the OP of the post, one open 4062, says she's actually ridiculous. Mystery race, a brown man. That could be an overly tanned Greek man for all we know. She can't be for real. She just want to be down. Just admit that, Jessa. Clark After Dark 123 thinks that it's kind of ridiculous. She's writing what she knows and has representation in her books. Authors really can't win. You don't have representation, then you're a racist, but you do, and it's a fetish. Again, I think it really comes off on how you are portraying things. Then there's this comment from Bella Stardust. Y'all, please don't be mad at me. I truly say this with love and the best intent, but two things can be true at once. Even mixed race people deal with internalized issues, and the way they experience race is unique, so yeah, it might reflect in the writing. I haven't noticed what OP is saying though, as I've only read Magnolia Parks and just started Daisy Hates. Also, yes, it does make sense if someone is mixed race and writes mixed characters, but also when we talk about race, race is based on phenotype. Mixed race doesn't equal person of color. NoBox6610, on the other hand, the final comment says, go touch grass, babe. So there's definitely a lot of mixed opinion on how her representation is actually coming off to readers. So a big issue a lot of people have is that Jessa will have AMAs on her Instagram where people submit questions, and then she always chooses questions that she responds badly to. So we can see from this screen cap on Reddit from No Yam I Am, there is a screen cap of an AMA response that Jessa posted where the fan asked, I know you're not writing it, but will we have Daisy 3 before Varley? And this is Jessa's response. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not being evasive. I genuinely don't know. I have a lot going on that isn't stuff you guys know about or are aware of yet. And Daisy 3 specifically is a really complicated write for me at the minute for both practical and creative reasons. I need books for me to go back to being a fun and enjoyable place for me. It's been a weird byproduct of how successful this series has been, with how some people have reacted and treated me in my stories through their own weirdly misguided passion for my stories, have stopped so much of the delight I used to find in writing these people. And as I said, there's so much more than what you guys see and know, and I actually just need to be able to enjoy writing and enjoy stories for a little while. I need to feel in control of the worlds I'm writing, which is hard to feel when I have strangers on the internet who've never written coherent direct messages, let alone a book in their lifetime, barking at me that I'm doing it wrong. I need to feel enchanted by what I'm working on. I need the escapism of being lost in my own worlds again for a little while. So maybe it'll be Daisy 3 first, maybe it'll be Varley, maybe it'll be Grover, maybe it'll be Death, maybe it'll be the one I accidentally started writing on Tuesday, IDK, we'll see. And I'm not going to say that her fans aren't probably overstepping and commenting on her social media posts, but it is widely known that Jessa herself will go on to people's posts and reviews that she's not tagged in and start commenting. I think it's fairly obvious that she goes on social media to read people's reviews of her stuff and then takes it really personally. The OP kind of summarized what Jessa said and then added, I beg your pardon, she's not the only author or writer in the world. I understand and sympathize that it's annoying and even emotionally taxing to have people complain about your books, your world, your characters, etc. But that's the price you pay as an author. That's not anyone's fault that you can't block that out to work on your own writing. I found this just so rude and condescending. And I agree. And even if people are like commenting these things directly on her social media, this is why a lot of authors have PAs to screen comments. They certainly aren't opening AMAs for people to submit questions to them unfiltered. Annual Fuel 4851 responded, it's rude. That's her job. She chose to do that. If some inconsiderable fans bother her so much, then it's time for a social media cleanse. And girl, who on earth agreed that 4 started projects are the move? Easons responded, her books, which I love and are my comfort series truly, are riddled with typos, so maybe let's dial back on calling out coherency. Yikes. Flaky Move 1785 responded, she had also written there instead of there on one of her last few AMA stories, so the call is coming from inside the house. Classic Spoonbill added, came here to write this. The attitude makes it difficult to forgive the typos and text that are in the wrong place/context. Serendipia 94 says, I've seen worse answers from her, not gonna lie. However, she used to lurk on Twitter and search up for her name and started answering people. She does the same on TikTok when she's not even tagged or mentioned. If the problem is the fans, it would be beneficial to stay off social media and then come back. Or have someone handling your socials while you're writing. I know readers can be a little too much, but if they're bothering her, she needs to ignore and block. Yeah, all of that discussion was happening in December. And in March, Jessa had a crash out, really, of her own making. Books with Mari shared screenshots from Jessa's Instagram on Threads. discussing Jessa's use of AI. Jessa Hastings crashing out over people calling her out for using AI and accusing people of being meanies. Girl, this is gross behavior. And the well-read nurse at the bottom. Is Magnolia white? Because that's a white woman. So like I mentioned before, she's supposed to be a biracial character, which obviously can look any way. You know, genetics are a mystery of inheritance, but it is just funny that you can't tell her apart from this other character who is like apparently definitively described as a white dude. So Jessa posted AI image with the caption, "For about 3 minutes tonight, I was going to start Instagramming as Magnolia. On a whim at 4 a.m, me, the creator of Magnolia and BJ, asked ChatGPT to whip up a photo of them. I wanted to make sure Magnolia's skin color was properly represented and not lightened, as she often is in Pinterest polls." Jessa was really upset at the response. People immediately started commenting, "Not the AI art instead of real artist drawings of her. Ew, not AI." And Jessa responded, "Believe it or not, they're not actually real, so it's hardly as though I can just zip over to Holland Park and take their photo." Another fan responded, "I feel like Magnolia would be repulsed by AI art. I don't know who this person is, but it ain't BJ." But Jessa continued. But anyway, so now that's not going to happen because, like, literally, what is even the point when people are so ready to only see the worst in any given thing? What a terrible way to live. I don't think being aware of ethical issues is a terrible way to live inherently. It's terrible when you deal with this, certainly. She then posted this photo. "We could have had a whole Instagram page of this shit for Magnolia, but now nope, I like my piece too much." And it's a photo of JoJo Siwa at an event with Magnolia's caption, "Oh, I hadn't realized the theme was to come dressed as my personal nightmare." Which, I mean, while JoJo Siwa dresses unconventionally, I feel like that's also a really rude caption. Especially when arguably this is like one of the tamest JoJo Siwa costumes before her recent tradwife transformation. She then posted screenshots from her private conversation with a friend of hers with the caption, "Let it be known that my dear friend Adam the Brave is a menace to the MPU." MPU being Magnolia Parks universe. Where her friend Adam responded, "Ha ha 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 ha. You should reply, 'Have fun waiting for DH3. And Jessa responded, "Adam, I literally had to stop myself. I was going to go on the googly eye post, say, well, that just added another 2 years on how long you're going to have to wait for Daisy 3. Which, like, that is so... Your response to fans pointing out an ethical issue and something you've done is to tell them, well, sucks to be you. I'm not going to publish the rest of the story. Like, it's just really obvious she doesn't like people liking her stuff. She then posted this meme where she CC'd the meanies and said, "You did this," Julian being one of her characters that people like. So she's just gonna kill him off because she's mad people called her out. Very mature. Also in March, Britt and Her Books posted asking, "Before I post this book, is there any Jessa Hastings controversy that I need to know about?" And people jumped to attention. Carly's Growing TBR said she referred to a Latinx person in her book as having skin the color of dirt. "I'd rather eat dirt than read one of her books." Tinnican Reed said she uses Gen AI, and when her fans called her out on it, she was bugging out on them, and she's always threatening to kill off characters to retaliate on fans whenever she's upset. The solo artist says, "That's toxic. Wow, shake my head. That is toxic." She quickly responded, "Well, not posting that. The pub sent me her new book that's dropping tomorrow. Oh well." Sarah Thoughts on Books responded, "Thanks for asking, because now I can take a book and return it back to the little free library." Marlo Sterling responded 2 months later, saying, "Jessa Hastings has to be the most pick-me author I've ever seen. I get readers saying this kind of stuff, but you as an author talking like that about your colleagues' work, not only have I never seen her promote other authors, indie bookstores, or defend libraries, but she also has the audacity to speak that way about her peers' work." Because Jessa made this comment on TikTok saying, "You're an artist who produces art. Art is always polarizing. It just so happens there's not much artistry in the publishing industry, neither on the covers or in many of the books themselves. I love what we do. I love being an industry disruptor together. I wouldn't change a single thing," which, yikes. Even if that's what you think, that's definitely like an inside thought. And like at the end of the day, books don't need to be art. Like, do I think you have a better experience when they are? Probably. But do you need to be at 100% with everything you engage in? Certainly not. Lilibet Bombshell added, "Jessa Hastings is part of Hillsong, which is anti-everything I stand for. I don't know how anyone who cares about POC, feminism, immigrants, the separation between church and state, women's rights, LGBTQIA+ rights, or generally anything the GOP or those traders at the Capitol stand for can read her books. Talk about problematic authors making a ton of money and then funneling it directly into what's essentially an evangelical cult. Novels and novellas, kind of scathingly. She literally typed the F word twice and put it in her completed manuscript like nothing was wrong with the phrase. But sure, AI is where you people draw the line. And I will say, like, obviously you should be cognizant of how you're using problematic words and phrases or ideas in your work. But I don't think it is fair to say that those things can't ever be used in a book without also making the book problematic. Like, we do need to talk about serious issues that impact people. Frequently, the only way is to actually engage directly with those words and or themes. But ideally, context is respectful and the end messaging is clear as to what we should be doing. Right? You can't ignore problems like sexism or racism by refusing to engage with them, even if seeing that content is painful. It's all about how everything comes together in the end. Obviously, writing what seems to be like a flippant story about these two toxic people maybe not being in love probably isn't the right place to try and introduce these topics. Books with Mari responded, I did not read this book, and while I try to stay as up to date with every author, I did not know this, and I would have drawn the line there. But I don't promote Jessa Hastings or her books. Not everyone you see online is a piece of shit. At the end of the day, there's definitely a difference between a book that treats a topic inappropriately and is an issue and should not have made it past editing versus a book that deals with a problematic issue in a way that is ultimately respectful and constructive to the discussions of dismantling or fighting back against different forms of oppression or discrimination. However, given the comments that we've seen so far from Jessa, I don't think that she's necessarily the author to try and deal with these issues. Chronically Brenna posted, I had a bad experience with this author on TikTok in 2023 after commenting on a friend's post where she wasn't tagged about not liking her book covers. And she decided to be super rude and snarky in a reply, and that's always stuck with me, so I've stayed far away ever since. More evidence that Jessa just goes into readers' spaces and then clearly doesn't take what she reads with an objective eye. Chronically Brenna adds, yep, it was like such an invasion of a reader's space because, like, she wasn't tagged in the video. I hadn't ever meant for her to see that comment and, like, geez, I'm allowed to have that opinion. Definitely, like, this is just like authors calling out negative reviews that they weren't tagged in. You can't fault the reader or the reviewer when you go specifically onto sites for book reviews and then harass people about it. Rory's Bookshelf posted these screenshots from Jessa's Instagram and says the following. She is anti-choice. These are her Instagram stories. She's also a very problematic author for a lot of reasons, and she treats her readers like shit. So if we go on to the screenshots, you can see that during another AMA, someone asked Jessa what her thoughts on abortion are. Like, I will preface this, I do think she brings up some good points, but ultimately, I think her messaging shows her true motivations. Jessa says, I think it's murky. Would I get an abortion personally? No. But you know what? I come from a wealthy first world family. I have free healthcare. I have a supportive partner, and I have easy access to birth control. My life experience is very different to the vast majority of people on Earth. I was born into privilege, and not acknowledging that is stupid and dangerous. Now, gun to my head, am I pro-life or pro-choice? If you're forcing me to give a black and white answer, the answer is pro-life. But that's if you're making me choose between black and white when really the answer is gray. The answer is nuanced because life is nuanced. I've never been assaulted, I've never been poor, I've never been in an abusive relationship, I've never had to worry about medical bills, but this is not the vast majority's reality. I don't think we can say we're pro-life without being pro-all life until we're giving women better avenues to adopt out these babies, until there's free healthcare for everyone, until we're providing families with postnatal care. If you are pro-life, there is a duty of care you have, you personally, that extends beyond babies in tummies, but to babies in broken homes, to babies who are unwanted when they arrive, to mothers who didn't want to have babies, to mothers who can't feed babies she already has, to women who can't afford their hospital bills. You can't pick and choose. Pro-life means you're pro all lives all the time. I totally agree with this. It is not just whether or not a pregnancy should continue. There is so much more that we as a society need to be doing to support A, children, B, mothers, C, families. The whole point of a society is to work together to promote the well-being of the people around you. Your community, you belong together. We all are Americans, or, you know, you're all Australians, you're all British people, whatever. However, that being said, I do think she is overlooking the key aspect that if you think other people should have choices, you are pro-choice. If you think people should be able to make a decision, even if you would not make that decision yourself, you are pro-choice. Pro-life is literally built on the back of the idea that you should be able to enforce religious rules on people who don't follow that religion. And even people who do follow that religion and interpret some things differently. By her saying, gun to my head, I'm pro-life, you're saying that you actually don't care. You actually don't care about this. Jessa continues, I will say this also, I don't think it's as simple as my body, my choice. I think that's wrong and a reactionary statement that women spout when they feel their voice is being silenced. I think it goes much further and wider than my body, my choice, and I think there are circumstances where women have every right in the world to say that, but I don't think it's necessarily true as a blanket statement. What is that supposed to mean? Of course it is true as a blanket statement. You are allowed to make decisions about your body with your doctor without having legal restrictions placed on that. You get to choose. If you have cancer, do you want to do chemotherapy? Do you not want to do chemotherapy? Do you want to have surgery? What do you want to do? Your body, your choice. They cannot force you to have chemo. They cannot force you to take pills. They cannot force you to have surgery. Your body, your choice. I can't force you to get tattoos. Did I choose to get tattoos? Yeah. I am able to make that choice. I cannot force you or legislate you into doing anything with yourself. She continues, I don't think the phrase does pro-choicers any favors either, because it comes off quite callous and unconsidered, when actually I think you'll find most women getting an abortion have considered every other option before arriving there. Okay, and it's still their choice. I'll add this, I don't think there's a person in the world who wakes up and thinks to themselves, yes, I'm so glad I have to get an abortion today. I don't think anybody wants that. I mean, like, yeah, nobody wants to undergo a medical procedure if they don't have to. So what are my thoughts on abortion to recap? Of course, I'd rather all babies lived. Of course, who wouldn't? If I'm black and whiting it, I'm pro-life. But there's a gun to my head and I'm not comfortable with it because no matter what I think, whatever I think, it's because I'm privileged. I know that I have a very first world experience of life, and that experience hedges my thoughts and opinions and options just as much as someone who doesn't come from privilege is hedged by their experiences. I think it's nuanced and gray, and I think we as a society need to treat it as such. And guys, please be gentle when you discuss it. Be kind to one another. You don't know what people have been through. You don't know why or how. Have opinions if you want, but to be kind when you engage with others. When you're talking to people about this, try talk to them how you would if Jesus was sitting right behind you auditing everything you said. Okay, I don't need an imaginary man to tell me what to think. Like, at least she's saying that she's a tone-deaf person without life experience. But a few months later in June, Jessa came on fire again because she was interviewed about how she researches for her books and says that she uses ChatGPT, which obviously upset a lot of people. I'm not going to replay the video, but essentially what she says is that she uses it to research now because she has ADHD and she got too deep into rabbit holes while researching. So now, instead of spending a few hours reading about things, she can just ask ChatGPT and ChatGPT is going to give her the answer. Her example was for one of the Magnolia Park books. She needed to know what type of oyster would be available at a specific time of year and be able to be delivered like in a certain time frame. So like of the things she could be doing with Gen AI, certainly this is probably one of the least problematic ways, but I do also think part of the fun of researching is learning about things. But it also just makes me laugh because there are a lot of reviews talking about how she uses so many like Americanisms or Australianisms when it's supposed to be set in London with British people who aren't transplants from other countries. Like she'll use the word bucks instead of pounds, and then people will say pants instead of trousers and that sort of thing. So it's like you so desperately need to look up oyster stats when you don't look up common terminology that appears multiple times in your book. So after her interview saying she uses ChatGPT dropped, this is also around the time that the Mariana Reeds scandal happened, where she promoted Character AI, a Gen AI app that makes up stories for you. Jessa went ahead and posted this long rant on her Instagram. Last thing I'll say about it, everyone who's giving that creator shit for using AI, you better be so freaking above reproach in your own self-righteous little lives. I mean, like, you better never ever have used autocorrect and predictive text, better have face unlocking turned off on your phone, fingerprint scanning too, and you sure as shit better not be using Siri or Alexa. You had better not have purchased anything through a targeted ad or product recommendation. You definitely cannot have ever interacted with a chatbot on an online store before. And I hope your spam filter's off, and you better not have tabbed a smart reply on Gmail. Hope your grammar's perfect because no Grammarly for you either. I also hope you've never watched anything Netflix has recommended you, and I know for sure you're not listening to Discover Weekly on Spotify. Which none of these things are Gen AI. I presume every time you open TikTok to spew your hate, you are completely horrified by your AI-generated algorithm that brings you to your homepage. And thank God you're freaking Magellan when it comes to navigation, because your pious ass would never be caught dead using Google Maps or Waze. And I know that the next time your bank texts you fraud detection, was this you? And in fact, it was not you, that you're going to pass on that refund the bank would have supplied to you, because those texts are AI driven, and fuck AI, am I right? You're so above it, you don't ever use it, which is why you're able to stone people who do. You don't have a Roomba, you wouldn't be caught dead with a Ring camera, and you definitely don't use an Apple Watch, or an Aura Ring, or a Whoop. And most obviously, you never once in your whole entire life used an Instagram filter, a TikTok voice changer, or a background swap. So you're on your AI high horse. I hope to God your hands are well clean of all of the above, or else you're nothing but a giant hypocrite and a bit of a prick. Bye. Which is just so funny because none of these are Gen I. None of these are Gen I. These are totally different. Only a few weeks later, Jessa then began ranting that authors don't take their jobs seriously because they give away the ending for their stories all the time. No Bad Novel with T posted this little summary on Threads. Because I'm tired of the vague posting yet again in the reading community, Jessa Hastings, Magnolia Parks, has decided to come out and state that a romance book sold as such where the author promotes it with a happily ever after is a spoiler. Please be aware that if a book is sold under the romance genre, it's required to have a happily ever after. Also, the author has defended AI and had some weird stance on pro-choice. The Danger Dame went ahead and linked the post where she says she uses ChatGPT. Aethra's Books posted this thread where she had been talking with Jessa on Facebook, where she says, Jessa Hastings and I agree on one thing. She doesn't deserve the career. The lack of critical thinking is very much evident. Where Jessa responded regarding AI. Sidebar, for manual labor and factory worker jobs, etc., I very much think we should keep employing humans, even if robots are more efficient. But yeah, as a creator, I don't feel entitled to this job, and I don't feel threatened by AI because I know I'm good at it. I heard that someone asked Hans Zimmer if he was threatened by AI, which is becoming increasingly popular to use in scoring spaces, and he said, no. And when they asked him why, he said, because I'm Hans Zimmer. Which is like, yep, we're the humans, we have the advantage. If what we're making is so generic and lackluster, then AI can mimic it. I don't deserve the career. Inglorious Gigi notes, she writes mediocre white books about mediocre white women. Jessa can easily be replaced. The Jungle Boogie responded, well, she misspelled the word no, so I guess her AI isn't as helpful as she'd like to believe. So Rory's Bookshelf posted this on Threads, and they attached this screenshot from a group chat that Jessa has on her, I believe that this is Instagram, where Jessa says, well, I learned today that many actually traditionally published authors do tell the endings to their books. So basically, I hate it here, not here. Here's great. I hate it in Bookland. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. To clarify, I will never tell you. I hate this so much. I hate that. I hate that authors do that. I feel like they don't take our job seriously. It's an honor and a privilege to get to tell stories, and they're just giving away the ending to appease the impatient. F on that. F on off. Not in my house. Saying there's a happy ever after in a romance novel is the same as saying there's a murder in a murder mystery. They're genre conventions. They need to happen for your book to fit in the genre. This would be like science fiction without any science. And Diana Coex agrees. Not to mention, romance books literally require a happy ending. LMAO. And Rory says, just as being ignorant as usual. Jackie Milam author says, no author gives away the ending. Being a traditionally published author that follows the rules of their genre isn't giving the ending away. I'm assuming this has to do with the romance debate. Confirming you have a happy ending isn't giving specifics. She's out of her mind. And Rory responds, yep, but she doesn't even understand the industry she works in. Of course, no author is explicitly telling their readers the happy ending. It's just implicit because of the genre they're writing in. It takes talent to make people want to read your book, even if they know there will be a happily ever after at the end. And this is where journey before destination comes in. It's about what gets you there, what's happening the whole time before you get to the happily ever after. Bookish with Brit says, God forbid a girl doesn't want to waste her time with a non-happily ever after. Once again, wondering how people love this author. Putting down your fellow authors, real cute. And Rory says, this is a direct quote from her latest book. She needs to spend less time worrying about what other authors do and spend more time writing better things. And someone quoted, I had sex with Johnny Depp a week ago. Just like, God, keep that in mind, please, in the first chapter. And then Little Blonde Books says, the author who supports AI saying they don't take our job seriously is hilarious and hypocritical. As for authors not confirming the ending of their stories, Reading is Dreaming had an interesting tidbit to share. Didn't she confirm who Magnolia's endgame is before the last book came out? And Aurora Bookshelf responded, yeah. So she's doing it herself. But it's okay when she does it. It's the other authors that don't respect the craft of novel writing. This all came to a head this last week when Jessica posted this extremely flattering TikTok of herself. Autumn Rose Knows in a Book shared it to Threads with the caption, why do some authors think it's a cute look to belittle their readers? This is not the first time Jessa has posted things like this and threatened to hurt her characters. Just because her readers are excited for future books? How terrible of them. Thoughts? And she adds, the original video was deleted within an hour of her posting it, but it was her lip syncing to Sabrina Carpenter's Man-Child, which made it seem like she was calling her readers stupid and slow. Right, so here's the video. Obviously, I'm gonna have to censor the music. Like, this is such mean girl behavior. Overall, I just wonder, like, why does she keep interacting on social media if it's bringing her such distress? Maybe she just likes being angry? I don't know. I do feel like if she had just answered these questions in different ways, she probably wouldn't have nearly the amount of backlash she does. Obviously, outside of the problematic instances in her books that can't really be avoided, but an apology goes pretty far. Like, when people genuinely correct their mistakes, usually fans and the audience respond pretty well to that. But attacking them certainly doesn't earn you any favors. Well, I might not be a contemporary romance reader, but I certainly won't be recommending her books to my friends that are. What a shame. Well, that is all I have for you today. I will see you next time.